if you are going into this for a product, for something that you can scale, that you can put someone to work for you, that you think that you might be in Bahamas drinking daiquiris and someone is doing your infusions, you are in the opposite direction of what the field actually is. 3, 2, 1, lift off.
Welcome to the Ketamine Startup Podcast. This is your host, Dr. Sam, and I am very excited to interview Dr. Tiago Gil. He is our first international physician who is coming all the way from Brazil. So it is an honor to have you here, Tiago, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Sam. I'm flattered to be here with you.
So for our viewers and listeners who do not know who you are, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
My name is Thiago. I'm an anesthesiologist here in Brazil. And I finished my residency on 2013. I believe it's 2013. So I did not take a long road before joining the ketamine community. I just worked on ER and OR for a little bit, 3 or 4 years. And 2017, I started searching for articles, papers on ketamine for anesthesia, for ER. Suddenly I stumbled on antidepressant properties and said, whoa, that changes everything.
Yeah, thank you. And this is fascinating because as you and I both know, the specialties most familiar with ketamine infusions, at least, are emergency physicians as well as anesthesiology. So that is really cool. What was the pivotal moment for you or experience that influenced your transition from regular traditional operating room, emergency department, ICU, and then because it's a leap going from the traditional healthcare setting into the ketamine space? Was there a specific moment or experience where you made that switch?
Here, anesthesia is a little bit different from the US. So the doctor, the anesthesiologist, the MD is the one that actually stays in the room all the time with the patients. We don't have this person, the CRNA. There is no CRNAs here. So we do the hands-on job. And in anesthesia, we always study some specialties inside the specialties. We can do a course, a 3-day immersion on ultrasound image for pre-anesthetic evaluation, or we do another for pediatric anesthesia or something like this. It's like small courses that we use to enhance our abilities. And if you like it, you do it, then you anywhere with your friends in the OR, suddenly there is a kid, say, hey, you're the one that done the kid stuff, go do the kid, something like this. So it's not a medical degree, but it's just a free course that we can do after or during your residency. But people usually do it just to understand better the things. And I was just reading about ketamine. So how can I use it on sepsis patients? How can I use it on or ER? How can I use it for just to understand better on anesthesia field? How can I use ketamine? And something I read said antidepressant properties of ketamine. Antidepressant properties of ketamine. I can only remember venlafaxine being antidepressant. I cannot remember ketamine infusion, half milligram per kilo in half an hour. Antidepressant. What are you saying? So as an ER, I saw a lot of suicide attempts patients. I can do this on my emergency room. There is no problem doing this on my emergency room. I'm an anesthesiologist. I know how to handle ketamine. I'm not afraid of ketamine. I'm not afraid of sedating people. I work on an emergency room. There's a lot of suicide attempts there. And on that hospital, there was a psychiatric yard. So, we have some patients back there. Everything I'm reading is true. I need to get this knowledge on my hands. I need to understand this, as I've done with ultrasound for nerve blocks as well. I've done a small 3-day course on nerve blocks. So I need to do the same thing so maybe I can help people in the ER. Maybe I can do this in ER. And when I'm in the operating room, maybe I think if this is a thing, if this is a big thing, I can be the guy. But we are like 6 anesthesiologists, one on each room. Maybe they will have a role for psychiatric patients, and maybe I'm this guy. And I was just being lazy and thinking it's easier to do this than a C-section, more easygoing than a C-section. And if I stay in the room for psychiatrists just doing ketamine all day, it would be easier for me, and I can leave my shift early. That's the lazy thought. So I have a knowledge that my colleagues does not have, but I work in some hospitals. They have psychiatric yard, and maybe the the psychiatrist, they would bring these patients to the operating room so we can do ketamine on them. And if I have this knowledge on my hand, I can be the guy and I can be home early. That's what I was thinking about. I can leave my shift early than 12 hours. And in the emergency room, I see so many patients with suicide attempts, and I may help them if it's everything that I'm reading. It's true. It was 2017. And I start searching for who is doing this in Brazil. I start searching who could teach me if this is a real thing. Ketamine infusion is not a big deal, but the management, patient, the who and who not, we should do ketamine, and how and whens, and all those questions that a responsible doctor should have. I was having that time, and I said, I need to learn it with someone that's doing this for longer than me, and probably there is. And searching in São Paulo, where I live in Brazil, there was one psychiatrist doing this the very beginning. And I said, psychiatrist, if I'm there, I will be taking care of the patients for him, because he's a psychiatrist. He cannot handle ventilation, laryngospasm, hypertension. He cannot handle this. So I would be the one responsible, and he'll be teaching me. No, I don't think so. I don't think I want to learn this with psychiatric personnel. I want to learn this through anesthesia personnel. Probably there is someone in the anesthesia field that knows it and can teach me something about it. Then I searched online. I saw that in America, there was like 10 or 20 clinics already running. So they probably have some teaching course or something like this, but I need a hands-on. And I contacted them. I contacted 3 or 4. The one that called me back and was really amazing guy is Henrique Abreu from Portland, Oregon. Henrique Abreu is an anesthesiologist. He's board certified anesthesiologist. He was running a clinic since 2014. At the time, I believe 14, 15. I can't remember exactly that. He was at the very beginning. And he replied to me and said, yeah, I can do a mentoring and counseling. You can come here. We can do it. There's a fee for it, but you can, if you want to come. And it probably will worth the trip. So I go to Portland, but I want to go to Seattle as well. I just want to just for pleasure. That was my thought at that time. My trip, it will be a pleasure trip, and I will have time with ketamine. Let's see if it's worth. And I have this knowledge with me, and I don't know where it's going. Let's see. But I learned from my parents that knowledge is never too much. You cannot get full of knowledge. You can always put more knowledge inside of you. So would be a trip, would be fun. I will go. I'll take this chance. And that's how it went. So I stay next to him, shadowing him for 2 weeks. And we saw all the kinds of patients, and he introduced me to this whole new world. He showed me how to do it, when to do it, when not to do it. I stayed 2 weeks with him. Amazing place, amazing guy, amazing knowledge. I loved it. I could not believe the first time I saw a patient there with him. I really thought he was kidding on me. I thought he was joking on me. The first patient I saw with him, and I saw the patient one day, and then in the other infusion, they came back and they said, I think this guy is cheating on me. No one can improve in 2 days the way this guy improved. I know no one can improve this much on 2 days. No, this guy is making fun of me. This guy paid an actor to come here and just make fun of the poor Brazilian guy that's coming from the half of the world, and he's mocking me. It cannot be true. I'm going to see how it works. So when he left the room for another patient that was also explosion of getting better, there was a girl that was so low, and the next day she was in so high mood. I asked her mother. So I say, I'm going to catch the lie on the details. So I started talking with the mother. How long you been here, and how long you're doing ketamine? How she is doing with ketamine? And she told me everything as a regular mom would. Like, my daughter is in the college, and she does not leave the room, and does not take a bath. All those regular things I was expecting, and so deep and so detailed that she cannot be an actor.
So a lot of skepticism from your perspective. It sounds like unbelievable results.
No, it cannot be true. And no one is doing this in Brazil. It's not in all universities. It's not in all psychiatric hospitals. It's not in all psychiatric appointments. If these results are so good, They are so amazing with a well-known medicine, easy to do as an anesthesiologist. Nothing is easier than a sedation for an anesthesiologist or a ER. And you get these results, and we don't have 1,000 free clinics in Brazil. Something's wrong.
So actually, I'm curious because you're coming from Sao Paulo, Brazil, and that's a very different healthcare system. In the United States, ketamine infusions for off-label use is typically not covered by the traditional health insurance companies, although it's changing. Is that similar in Brazil, or is it something that the Brazilian patients pay cash or reals, or is it covered by their insurance over there?
We have a healthcare system a little bit different from America. We have a principle that everything is under one unique healthcare system. Everything is just one big umbrella. And this umbrella it has its parts. The public health system that can absorb a part of population. There's the complementary, not complementary, the paid, the insurance. It's another part. And there is the private that you pay for yourself. It's another part, the whole umbrella.
Got it. So 3 parts is what I'm hearing, like basic and then insurance and then private.
But there is a law saying that on this free, or not free, because I don't like this word, it's not free. I pay my taxes so it can exist.
Government sponsored. Yeah.
Government sponsored, the hospitals and healthcare. There is a law saying that this one is universal. So anyone, anywhere in the universe, can come here and have a healthcare. So if you have something that you cannot handle on your insurance in the United States, you can come to Brazil, you can get into a hospital, no questions asked. I personally have seen some patients from outside in ER, and we never ask for their cards, their identity, nothing. It's
well, so let me just go back. So what you're saying is theoretically, I could go to Brazil, let's say on a vacation, or even intentionally get appendicitis, for example, not intentionally, then I would get free healthcare in Brazil.
It can be done intentionally as well. It doesn't
and intentionally and intentionally. Okay.
Yes.
So
yes.
That's really interesting. What have you seen from the intentional perspective? Like not cosmetic stuff, I presume, right?
No, cosmetic stuff we cannot absorb. Cosmetic stuff.
Got it.
But I've seen a lot of parents coming from Bolivia, from Paraguay, and from those countries that are more poor than Brazil, and they don't have good healthcare with their children, and they pay a flight, or they're very poor and they pay a flight, or they pay a bus. So they get into São Paulo and they go to the first taxi driver and say, take me to the kids' hospital as soon as possible. My kid is dying. That thing I saw a lot. And when they come into our hospital, I've done part of my training in a kids only, child only hospital. And this is very common. People from Paraguay, from Bolivia, they come with their kids, really sick kids with cancer, with everything you can imagine. And they cannot have healthcare there, so they bring them here. And in the borders, in Brazil, the borders with Venezuela and borders with Argentina, Paraguay, that's a common place for you to get treatment in Brazil and not in your country.
So it sounds like you were one of the first ketamine doctors in at least Sao Paulo or Brazil. And it seems like those numbers are increasing. I think there are several clinics in Brazil. So is like in the United States, for example, when I started in 2018, I don't know, a couple hundred, and now there's 1,000 plus more ketamine clinics. Is that similar in Brazil where there's more numbers of clinics that are offering ketamine going up, or is it not really a patient demand for it?
I'm the first anesthesia provider. I'm the first anesthesiologist doing this. There's another before me that's a psychiatrist doing this, but the anesthesia provider, I'm the first one. As I know, if there is anyone that's older than me, please raise your hands. But I started in 2017 when I went to Henrique Abreu mentorship with him. So I get back and I start putting things together. And since then, I usually divide if you make hamburgers or you have a restaurant, a McDonald's. I can cook hamburgers at my home, but I don't have a McDonald's. That's a really different thing. Hamburgers, it's just a thing that I do for me and myself, and I do poorly. But McDonald's is a business. There's a business model. There is a lot of effort to make it happen that I don't put on my hamburger at home. So it's not because you're cooking hamburgers, you have a restaurant or a fast food chain. You just cook a hamburger. And at that time, I was the only one doing ketamine, and people look at me weirdly saying, what the heck you're saying? Are you nuts? Are you trying
skepticism again? Yeah.
Yeah. What are you trying to do? Get off here. And things evolved. So we have a lot of doctors that fry hamburgers at home. So they don't have a practice. They don't have a business. They don't have media. They don't have entrepreneur things. They just do for their own patients on their clinics. And maybe they send to the hospital and they ask a favor for the anesthesia on the hospital, do it for them. But it's not a business. It's not a business. The number of amateurs doing this like this grow up very fast.
Sure.
But the numbers of clinics and business owners, you can count it on our fingers. Like if we have 5 or 4, it's too much. Just in São Paulo, we have some clinics a little bit better than just doing at home, but still at home. Not at home, amateur style.
Sure.
But you cannot, I personally cannot see them as ketamine clinic because again, they were doing hamburgers on their backyards. They don't have a restaurant.
So is it also this trend either of a business or offering? Is it showing up in the other cities or is it mainly like in metropolitan Sao Paulo?
No, we have nowadays like 1 year ago, 2 years ago, they're blooming outside Sao Paulo. I think that Janssen has a lot to do with to the naturalization of speaking about ketamine.
Sure.
Because of Spravato, there is this naturalization. So they don't look me weirdly anymore. They don't think I'm crazy. They don't think I'm totally out of my mind. Now people say, oh, there is this intranasal stuff. So yes, there is this intranasal stuff. So we take the exactly same stuff and put it in your veins. It works better, faster, and cheaper.
What's interesting to me is, because I know you had a recent publication and the title of that article was Efficacy of Intravenous Esketamine in Reducing Suicidal Ideation and Major Depressive Symptoms, a Real-World Evidence Study, published in the Journal of Affective Disorders report, July 2024. So as I was reviewing your article, I found it interesting that you were using esketamine versus racemic. So would you mind telling us a little bit about the article and how you decided to use the S isomer versus racemic?
That's the main reason I choose to publish this is because we only have esketamine here in Brazil. We don't have any more racemic IV ketamine. We cannot access racemic ketamine anymore. It goes back to 2018, 2019, when the company that is doing the factory that's doing esketamine, they are doing esketamine since the end of the 90s, like 98, 99, beginning of the 2000s, either year 2000s. And they have both products in the market, the racemic and the esketamine for IV. And they were saying, okay, the esketamine gives you less dissociative effects. It's more powerful on analgesia, but it's expensive, more expensive. So usually no one was buying, but it's more expensive because it's a brand name. And when the company, they start seeing that ketamine is a thing, they try to develop their own version of Spravato, but it's not intranasal. But they bought the company that was doing racemic ketamine and shut it down. So they killed the competitors on ketamine field. So they would be the only one for 5 or 7 years until someone wants to build it again and ask permission again and start doing it again. So they knew that they thought we will have 5 years of only us. So they killed all the other ketamine formulations. So they thought we're going to release this as an antidepressant drug. So instead of you could buy the generic stuff, you have to buy from me. That's what they were thinking. So they shut down the racemic ketamine factory and registry. So we don't have racemic ketamine anymore. And we only have left in the market the esketamine, and we have esketamine IV. That's what we have. So
got it. That's fascinating. So no racemic generic ketamine is available in Brazil. However, intravenous esketamine is available. And so that's the reason for the focus on esketamine.
Yes, I actually did not have any choice. But that's a good thing because there is a lot of discussion. Is the S isomer that's stronger, better, faster, handsome, and smells good? Or is the racemic, which one is the best? And since in most part of the world you don't have IV esketamine, it's hard to do this comparison. And that's the main reason I published this paper. And I thought roughly I would love everybody to read it. But in a glance, they have the same results. They are exactly the same. I could not find any difference between my results and other real world analysis published elsewhere with racemic ketamine. It was not my primary intention on this paper to evaluate the response rate and compare statistically, professionally with others. Just look at the numbers in a rough way. And in a rough way, they are the same.
Got it. So for you, and because when we use it in the hospital setting, operating room, emergency room, versus at a ketamine clinic that specializes in infusions for mood disorders, how is it different? How do you practice differently in the hospital setting versus in the ketamine clinic? Are there any things you do differently regarding the patient's mindset or the environment? What's it like at your clinic?
We have some rules here, so I cannot just have a clinic for $1,000 a month. Like I know in US, you can just $1,000 a month, you can open a clinic. We have to have a small hospital, a day hospital, something like this. I don't have a clinic my own. My clinic is virtual. I have the mindset of a clinic, a physical clinic. What I do have, I go to the hospitals that I have as a partner and I rent a room in there. So I use their structure, their pumps, their monitors, their nurse, their everything. And they provide me this and they provide me all the environment. So I do this. When I start this, I was thinking I'm going to do as surgeons do. They don't own operating room. The surgeon, they take the patients in a hospital and they rent the space to operate this. That's how I thought on the beginning. To open a clinic by my own from the start with everything that we need would be a risky movement. And I was not willing to risk that money at that time. If I could go back, I still don't know if I was doing because I don't know what I know right now. And I think the main difference between what I'm doing on OR and I'm doing at my clinic, it's the first. When I'm an anesthesiologist, I talk to the patients like 3 words. Any diseases that I should know about? No. That's what we do. We don't talk to the patients. Then I used to say that the patients, after my first propofol injection, is not a person anymore. It's a system that I need to keep with the vitals up. What are the vitals? They're numbers. So I have numbers that I must keep up so the person can use this habitat again after I wake them up. So we don't have a relationship with the patient. We have a relationship with the system. So the cardiac output, so the temperature, so the blood pressure and the oxygenation, we have the systems on our heart. So we don't have a feeling of personal connection with them. And in ketamine, I don't offer ketamine. I offer quality of life. I offer, how can I say it in English? I offer a treatment, but the treatment is not the end point. The end of point is quality of life. It's getting better. Is having your mother back. Is having your kid back. Ketamine is a way to achieve this. Ketamine is the best way that I know to achieve a recovery from depression, suicidality, bipolar disorder, pain. So what I'm offering is quality of life. And the way I'm offering it today is with ketamine. So if tomorrow you have a better ketamine, if you have a better treatment, if you have something that tops ketamine, I will be doing this. I will not be stuck to ketamine because I'm not offering ketamine as a commodity, as a product, as something that I can buy and sell. I'm offering a treatment and a treatment that includes ketamine, but ketamine is not even the main purpose. The main purpose is quality of life. So my endpoint is quality of life. It's totally different from what I do in OR. OR, I'm having a system that I don't talk to it during the procedure, that I just need to put the system back up again. So there is a person inside there that can get back in habitat, use this receptacle to be there again. That's how things are. So we don't talk to them. And on ketamine, I'm worried about their future. I'm worried about their well-being. I'm worried about how to make the person live again. It's totally different, completely different headspace, completely different way of seeing things and running things. So it's not a product. And I think that's where most of entrepreneurs, that's where they fail. They see ketamine as a product, as an end on itself.
Yeah, it's a really good point because when you're working in the operating room, it sounds like the intention for you is just making sure that the body or the house the human system is going to be safe and sound so they can return once they receive their procedure or operation. Whereas with maybe it's not even called the ketamine clinic because it's like ketamine is one tool to help the person achieve a certain benefit or outcome. And I love how you're open-minded. It doesn't necessarily have to be ketamine. It's, hey, if there's some evidence that shows XYZ is better, the end goal is to have your child back, your mom back, your father back, your husband, wife, spouse, partner, etc. And the quality of life is actually what your intention is for those patients. So I like that clear distinction and discernment between those two.
The touching point of both procedures is you meet me on the worst day of your life. The day that you have your belly open is probably the worst day of your life. The day that you are on ER and no one goes to take a walk on ER if they're not severely ill. So you're meeting me at the worst day of your life and no one wants to do a ketamine just for the fun. You're meeting me on the worst day of your life. So I have to have a lot of respect with you because you are in the worst day of your life and I'm just another day for me. So that's one thing that I feel inside.
Yeah, it's a really good point because I know one of the other things that we had talked about previously before we recorded was about another thing you're doing is like lidocaine infusions for pain.
Yeah, we do lidocaine infusions for pain. The guys that are in the field for long enough, like me, and you have a lot of names we can pop up here. We're not just doing ketamine. I talk to 101 and we say that ketamine is part of the business. So ketamine, I cannot see the ketamine as on itself. That really bothers me on this subject. Because if there is a new way, I will be the first in line. For sure.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Because in addition to ketamine, there's obviously research happening in psilocybin, MDMA, 5-MeO-DMT. And I know in Brazil, for example, there's ayahuasca, which is legal in Brazil. And some people are using that. I think like for religious, do you know about I know in Brazil, they have several churches like the Santo Daime Church is one that people may have heard of, or the UDV Church.
União do Vegetal.
Yes.
Vegetable
so,
Union.
yes, thank you. So I think it's legal religiously with these other substances and medicines.
Yeah, ayahuasca is a controlled substance in Brazil. And if you cut it with a bottle of 2 liters of ayahuasca, you'll be arrested.
Okay.
But in the religious context, it's allowed. What is a religion context? You have to have a church, you have to have a liturgy, you have to be registered as a church, and you have to have the codes and the days and the organization and the whole thing so you can use ayahuasca.
Yeah. And I think we had a previous interviewee, Dr. Joe Tofor, who is Colombian American, and he was working with some indigenous shamans in Peru. And recently, it's illegal in the United States, but I think they filed a lawsuit against the DEA, Department of Justice, to use ayahuasca at his church, Church of Eagle and Condor, to use it for religious purposes in the religious context. So I think things are changing in the space.
Boris Heifeld is studying propofol, very low dose propofol with alpha power on the EEG. And he has a case series of 3 or 4 people that get actually healed because like they followed them for months and they were PTSD and depression free after the experience with low dose of propofol with only alpha power, like a state of dreaming after the surgery. So I'm not familiar with his job, with his work, but he put people that were in a surgery. After the surgery, he just raised the awareness until you are on alpha power. That's almost like dreaming state with managing the propofol amount you're giving the person and leave them on this amount for an hour. And they actually dream with their trauma, they saw their kids again, they fight back on the assault, and they wake up and they say, I cannot say anything more than I'm cured because I saw my father again. I saw my kid again. I could hug them. I could smile with them. I could understand that they are in a good place. They are not suffering. So I'm healed from inside. It's very powerful. It's very interesting. We see similar things on ketamine, but he could reproduce this with propofol with case series. I believe it's 3 or 4 patients.
Wow. And I've also seen some EEG studies where they were doing ketamine infusions, I believe on healthy volunteers, and they were measuring EEG patterns. And I think they noticed a predominance of something called the gamma waves, It is fascinating how whether it's alpha brain waves secondary to propofol or gamma brain waves secondary to ketamine infusion, how the brain responds to these medicines that we administer, and maybe the change in the brainwave frequency and patterns are actually what's creating the healing. And it doesn't necessarily have to be one medicine or another.
Yeah, that's a great question that I even discussed with one of Boris Heidfeld's co-authors, Teresa Lee. So we have bad synapses and we have bad dreams on bad synapses. So we have this connection, like I'm depressed, I have something on my brain, something on my wires, and it's generating negative thoughts and anhedonia and suicidal thoughts. So I do a medicine. I don't know which medicine is. And the question is, do I fix the synapses? Then it fixes the dreams, or I'm fixing or the medicine produces good dreams and the good dreams fix the synapses. That's the question that worth $1 zillion for me, but I cannot prove. I can only just say, I cannot just think, but I cannot prove it. The medicine heals the synapses and the synapses produces good dreams. So those person seeing again their lost ones, their loved ones. It's not, this is not the healing. The healing is something that the medicine done with the synapses, and then the dreams starting coming out of the synapses as a good dream. But the only thing that the person can feel and can understand is the dreams. So they dream and they associate the dreaming with the healing, but it's not the healing. The healing doesn't come from the dream, it comes from the change in synapses, but we cannot feel the synapses changing. So if we could.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. You mentioned the word dreams, and maybe is it the synapses affecting the dreams, the bad dreams, or is it like the dreams changing where you're having a good dream, which in turn affects the synapses? There's a psychiatrist who was like around the same time as Freud, Sigmund Freud, and he talked a lot about the power of dreams and how when someone goes to sleep, they actually connect with this thing called the universal unconsciousness or universal consciousness. And people will have similar themes or archetypes within those dreams. So maybe, and no one knows the answer to this, maybe there is something happening under these non-ordinary states of consciousness where they can access like the dreamland, and accessing that for one reason or another. We can call it dreamland. You can call it the subconscious, the unconscious, whatever is happening there. It will allow for healing in the reality of life.
If you tuned in to our episode today, chances are you're curious about the ins and outs of starting up a ketamine clinic. It's an exciting field, but let's face it, the journey from idea to actually opening day can be quite daunting. That's why we've created something special for you. Think of it as your personal roadmap, a free downloadable checklist that lays out the essential steps you need to consider when starting up your ketamine clinic. This checklist is designed to help you avoid common pitfalls and launch your trajectory to success. So how can you get your hands on this checklist? Simple. Just visit www.ketaminestartup.com/checklist and grab your free copy today. We've made it easy and accessible because we believe in supporting our community with a valuable resource. ketaminestartup.com/checklist. All right, let's get back to our discussion. Stay tuned and don't forget to download your free checklist during or after the podcast.
I'm curious, what's one piece of advice that you would offer a fellow doctor who is interested in entering this space? What advice would you tell her or him or they, as they're beginning? Let's say they're just thinking about it and they're like, hey, I want to get started. What advice would you offer them?
It's a tough question, but one thing that I think that now I understand that you're not offering a product, you're offering a treatment. And are you committed to the treatment? Are you committed with the person? Several entrepreneurs and startups, things like investors, they try to invest and buy and say, let's do a scale and let's do barriers of entry. And they try to do this here as well. And they all failed as well. If you're going into this for a product, for something that you can scale, that you can put someone to work for you, that you think that you might be in Bahamas drinking daiquiris and someone's doing your infusions, you are in the opposite direction of what the field actually is. The field actually is a lot of in-person empathy work with 90% of the time nothing to do with anesthesia work, because there is no way I can just ignore a person suffering and say, okay, let's shut up and take your ketamine. So the piece of advice would be, first thing, you must understand that you are getting into a treatment. People are suffering and you're providing relief for their suffering, and ketamine is a way, it's not a product on itself. So never sell ketamine.
Thank you. That's beautiful. And I'm curious, are you still working in the hospital, like for traditional, regular operating room stuff, or is that out of the picture now?
No, it's completely out of the picture. My last surgery, anesthesia for surgery, I've done was in January 2020, a month before COVID hits and put everything aside. That's my last shift. My father once come to me and said, how you're doing? I said, I'm working 4 times a day on ketamine stuff, and I have the clinic 4 times a day. And one day on Tuesdays, I'm doing surgical anesthesia. I never saw a bakery close one day of the week. If you're going to have a bakery, the bakery must be open all day. You need to jump into it. You got a point. You got a good point there. You got a good point. So I'm taking the leap and I'm living my last surgical anesthesia day, and I'm doing psychiatric anesthesia full time. Let's see where it gets. And that's where the last time I've done it, January 2020.
That's awesome. And so Monday through Friday, you're working at the psychiatric anesthesia clinic. Or do you still take some time off for yourself, or are you doing 7 days? This bakery is open 7 days a week.
Oh, my bakery is different. I'm the only one working there. I need to clean the oven sometimes.
Sure.
But I do on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I do infusions.
Okay.
So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I do infusions, and Tuesdays and Thursdays, I do consultations, appointments, I do bureaucracy stuff, I do my exercises, I do my talking therapy for me. I do these other things on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And my other projects, the paper, I wrote it on a Thursday or a Tuesday. I don't know. But that's the time for me and for the appointments for newcomers. But on Saturdays and Sundays, I'm not working.
Good. It sounds like you have a good work-life balance, and you're juggling taking care of yourself and also taking care of patients.
And could done better with myself, but okay, that's okay. I could take care better of myself, but I think it's okay. I cannot complain about it. It's okay. It's better than in a OR.
Yeah, for sure. I think, this work that we're doing, it can be emotionally intensive for not only the patient, but also for the doctor, right? Because we're forming these personal one-on-one connections. So I think it is important for people who enter the space or are already in the space to have that balance of, hey, taking care of myself and seeing my own therapist and working out and being with family.
I think talking therapy for us is a must. It's very hard to do it, to see patients all day and do not connect. If you're not connecting with your patients, you're doing it wrong. You should go back to OR, and you're not connecting with patients if you don't feel their pain, if you're not with them, if you don't know how to understand them. And I think it's very easy for us on this position to use our power, our biopower, just to citate Michel Foucault, our biopower to ensure bad things on patients, to put our vision on patients. So you're not getting better until you do something that I want, and discuss this point of view with your talking therapy and doing this therapy for yourself, and talk about your patients and how things are going, how they are going through you and how you are trying to go through your patients, and understand this movement. That's really important. Even for me to be a better provider, I need to do this, not just for my own mental health, but so I can be a better provider. I understand that some people, they have their own time and they cannot act as I want. If they need 10 infusions to get better and they ask for 10 infusions to get better, and they need to see me every month because I'm more than just ketamine supplier. I'm more than this. So be it. Let's do it. So to understand all these movements and the psychologist part of the job, I do my own talking therapy since forever.
We're going to switch gears and ask some different fun questions. So the first question I have for you, if you're on a deserted island and you could only have one book, one movie, and one type of food with you on the deserted island, what would they be?
I think I can have two books because one in Portuguese and one in English. I really love Edgar Allan Poe writings, poems and books and works. I think that he can understand the evil inside of us. And when I read what he wrote, I said, wow, I could possibly do this. If the situation goes on this side, I would react as this side. So I love Edgar Allan Poe. And if I'm nowadays in a mood to read a Brazilian, already deceased Brazilian author called Nelson Rodrigues. He writes plays for theater. He's from Rio, and he writes this cruel and real thing. And the plays, they go like this. So your wife have another man and you're not aware of it. And all that you can do is just fix your bow tie and take your suitcase and go to work. That's the mood of his work. And it's really rough, really raw. And I love it. I'm on this. So if I could, I would take all those Nelson Rodrigues plays with me.
And what about one movie?
I love Star Trek movies. I love Star Trek movies. I'm a Trekker. I love Star Trek. I love the next generation. I'm the old guy. I love the next generation and just dreaming about being on a spaceship with holodecks. These newer ones, I'm not into it. They go wrong for me, but I would take everything from Star Trek movies. It's another dimension. It's great. And for a food, I think the food would be pizza, but Brazilian pizza, not American pizza. Why? What's the difference from Brazilian to American pizza? Because for us, pizza is a dinner only thing, and it's a full meal. You get seated, you don't eat it with your hands. You get like thin crust with a lot of stuff inside on it. So it's a different kind of pizza, and it's a real business. It's not just a snack. It's a full meal that you share with family and friends as a meal. So it would be a Brazilian pizza. That I love pizza in Brazil. And then I was thinking it has everything I need. There is some carbs, there's some proteins, there is everything I need on my pizza. So it would be a Brazilian pizza. And Brazil it's known for its pizza crimes, like doing a pizza with sushi or something like this.
Ooh, wow. I'm definitely gonna have to try some. I don't think I had any Brazilian pizza when I was there. I think we had like Peruvian food, of course, acai bowls, a bunch of those, but I did not hit up the Brazilian pizza. So that's going to be on my to-do list when we go there. I'm curious, what's your favorite like vacation spot in Brazil?
One of the places that I like the most to go because it's close enough and it's amazing is the city of Ubatuba. It's a city on the coast side of São Paulo. So it's really close to go. It's 3-hour driving. And there is these beaches, and they are unique because you have the sand, the water, the sand, and just like a kilometer behind it or a mile behind it, you have the mountains with the rainforest. So you're at the beach and you look behind you and you see these mountains with rainforest. And this is a unique environment. It's not like the Caribbean Sea. If you're in the Caribbean beaches, you have the desert behind you. Just sand, desert sand behind you. But in Brazil, you have these mountains with rainforest. So it makes the thing so unique and you feel so much connected with the nature and so grounded with the nature. That's one of the best places for me to go in a vacation because it's close, it's good, it's amazing. It's everything that you can describe. It's good is there. But there is a lot of beautiful places here. I always say about Bonito. Everybody that's not from Brazil must go to Bonito. In Bonito, it's a natural aquarium, like the water sprouts and you can just float in the water, in the river, and all the ornamental fish are around you and it's natural and you just float in go with the river. And it's so much fun and so beautiful that Bonito means beautiful in Portuguese. So.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a hidden talent or hobby that most people would be surprised to learn about?
I know how to juggle. Okay. I almost was a clown once. Medicine is my second university. The first one I've done is communication skills. It's designing and scripts and those kind of stuff. I had a lot of friends, they were doing clown, but the serious clown, not the circus clown, the serious clown, like Buster Keaton clown, like Chaplin clown. But Buster Keaton is the clown that doesn't laugh. So it's another way of doing the clown craft. And when I was in my first university, it's a thing so big the clown world. It's a thing so big and so interesting that I was almost diving into it. But I do the same thing that I've done with ketamine. I saw someone juggling and I said, that's a great talent. I need to understand. I need to absorb this to me. I need to know this. So I just got into him and he taught me how to juggle with balls and clubs. And I like to. So juggling is one of my hidden talents.
Can you do more than 3 or I know some people can do 5, 7, or is 3 your limit?
Well, I stopped when I was doing 4.
Okay.
Nowadays, I believe I can only do 3 and I have the clubs and I was doing great with 3 and I was starting doing with 4. Then life changes the course of the river and I have my balls here. But
yeah, I actually learned how to juggle a few years ago from one of my favorite mentors, Dan Millman, at a retreat in Costa Rica. And once he taught us with 1 and then 2 and then eventually 3. And one of the most powerful lessons he said is when you're juggling, you're actually meditating in that there's nothing going on in my mind when I'm juggling the balls. It's just, I'm just focused on catching one, throwing one, catching one. And he said, this is a physical way to get into the present moment. So I loved that about juggling, and even practicing 1 minute, 2 minutes a day really just gets me out of my normal thought process and just has me focus on a different task, which I think can be really useful.
I never thought on this way, but it really, when you're juggling 2, 3 or contact juggling with 1, there is nothing on my mind besides.
Exactly.
I just know, I don't even think where the ball is going to fall. I just know where to catch the ball. I just know. The only thing that I think of when I'm doing juggling is, whoa, I'm doing this and it's amazing. I'm here like for 10 minutes now. I'm doing this for 10 minutes. It's not even myself. It seems like someone is doing this for me.
Tiago, it's been a pleasure talking with you. For the listeners and viewers who want to know more about you, what's the best way for them to connect with you, whether it's social media, LinkedIn? What would be an optimal way to connect with you?
I think the best way is through Instagram. My Instagram is Ketamine, Cetamina. That means ketamine in Portuguese.
On Instagram, Ketamine, and we will link and put up in the show notes. So if people want to actually see it written down, they can just go to the show notes. And before we wrap up, is there anything else, last thoughts, comments, questions, ideas, insights that you want to share to feel complete?
I think we shared a lot. I think that the main idea of the main message that I want to show is that the ketamine is not a product. It's a process. And for the entrepreneurs starting on their own ketamine clinic, don't take this as a product or as a commodity like rice or beans. You're not going to succeed.
Thank you so much, Tiago, and appreciate all the listeners for staying till the very end. It says a lot about you and truly a pleasure. Take care.